Welcome into another episode. I am really excited to be joined today by someone who is doing really great things over in the Patriot League. That is Melissa Graves, currently in her third year at the helm with Boston University. They're 12 and 6, have a big game coming up tomorrow against Lafayette, and then a huge game on Monday with Holy Cross, which is one of the games that I have circled for the Patriot League this year. First and foremost, Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, today's been a great day. We had a really good practice, a good bounce back, obviously off of that loss against Army. It was a tough loss on the road, so it was nice to see a little bounce back today. And this is a tough week. We have 3 games in a week, so there's not a lot of time to feel sorry. You got to have a short memory here and kind of move on, and just continue to try to get better. So today, it's been a good day so far. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm glad I could get you on. It's been fun catching everything you guys have been doing this year. Obviously had a wonderful season last year, which we'll get into as well. But um, I think the first thing I really want to dive into and ask is like, what has this year been like for you? Because I think, obviously year one and two is a ride for anybody, but I feel like year three is once you start getting that like, all right, this is kind of obviously it's been your team since the start, but it's like, all right, my core values have been here. I have players who have been here for multiple years that are getting these things instilled in them. And now it's kind of like, all right, this is our thing.
Yeah, well, at first it's been nice to not be pregnant for a year.
Yes,
I
I can
don't know if you
imagine.
knew I was
I
pregnant the
though I was
first two
aware you
years.
you found
Yeah.
out your first week on the job, right? Right around there.
Yeah, yeah. I got married the first week on the job and got pregnant less than a month later. So I had my daughter my first year, my daughter Araya, who's going to be 2 next month, and then last year I had my son Cameron, who's going to be 8 months. He's about 7.5 months now. So it's nice, with that aspect of it. Physically, it's
Yeah,
it's been
I
a
can
lot
imagine.
better. With the other pieces, though, your first year is a whirlwind. There's so much going on. You have to focus on putting in all the big picture stuff, culture, style of play, expectations, all those things, what your recruitment wants to look like, your staff. There's so many things to put in place. It's like being a freshman again in college, and a big learning process. So I was really happy, throughout my first year to learn so much, while going through so many life changes as well. I lost my father my first year. I got married. We just bought a new house. I had a baby. There was so much going on. So just trying to juggle those things. Still had a pretty successful year, I think. And then
Very.
obviously, last year, it just gets so much easier. It's like a weight lifted off of you where you know what you want. There are things put in place, especially with such a veteran team that we had last year. A lot of the culture ran itself in the locker room. We had great leadership. We had 5 seniors and 4 of them were captains. So that was really nice and kind of, a breath of fresh air that we had an extension of the coaching staff within the locker room, which was really good. And then this year it's just, different. We have different leadership, not good or bad, different. And it's nice to see in a different way, Kate and Alex are captains out, but to see their growth as leaders. It was very different with last year's kids because, you know, they were already in place of you're ready to take over and lead, where we've really grown our leadership this year. And so it's really nice to see them kind of take over that piece and really grow in those areas, and they continue to grow daily. And it's been really, really cool to see that. And still I thought we had a really successful non-conference. We're just very young. We have 6 freshmen, 2 transfers, only, two of our returners really played a significant minutes last year. So we're a very new group that has tried to mold and gel together. And I thought we exceeded expectations in the non-conference. We had the most wins in our program in the Patriot League in the non-conference. And then now we're kind of figuring out some things too throughout this conference play. So the goal is just to continue to get better, for our freshmen to get some more experience under their belt and feel what it's like to be in this conference and those sorts of things. So as long as we're continuing to trend forward and upward and continue to learn from wins and losses, I feel really good about those things.
No, I really appreciate that perspective because I think part of what's so interesting, I feel like every year, not that like obviously you have like again core values and things that you want to hit on foundationally, but like every year changes with what your approach is and what you're getting to, what progress looks like. And it's funny too, because that's something I had noted down in terms of mentioning how young you guys are as a team. Like just I'm sure you're aware of these numbers, but like you returned 34% of minutes played from last year. And for reference, you returned 80% the year before, which is like that's just a huge jump in terms of like, you getting that influx of youth and kind of figuring out how to coalesce all that. So it's been really fun to watch this year.
Yeah, it's nice, to see, especially a kid like Audrey Erickson, who's a joy to coach, and she's come in and really got her groove under her. She's been playing really well. And so it's nice to see the growth of our young kids, and she's just one example. And then just the growth of people who didn't get their opportunity last year, like in Anna Semenova. She has taken off and been playing really well and stepped up in a role that even in the beginning of the year, we didn't need as big because we had Aneta in the starting lineup. When she went down, Anna's name was called, she stepped up. And so it's always really nice. And it's one of the greatest parts of being a coach is getting to see kids step up when their name is called and seeing the joy and the hard work, all those things, the hard work pay off. It's just so nice to see. And I'm really just so proud of them, just the team in general, but especially those kids who are finally getting their opportunities and have stayed ready for it.
Yeah, it's been really well, like you mentioned. I mean, it's been fun to watch that progress too, because like you just mentioned, Anna's been awesome in Patriot League play, and seeing the way that that's all kind of started to come together. Um, and veering off too, some of the stuff I really wanted to get into and ask about. Like, obviously, I have to hit on first. What was it like getting to witness Caitlin Weimer's thousandth? Geez, hard word to say. Thousandth point against shoot off the top of my head. Against Colgate. Wow, I literally just watched the game. But yeah, what was it like getting to witness that and kind of like what she's embodied for the program as a whole too?
Gosh, it's just like it's so expected, obviously, from so many people. And she hit her thousandth, me too, right?
Right? Like, yeah.
It's hard. She hit her thousandth career point, and then a few games later, she hit her thousandth BU point. So it was pretty close to it because her freshman year at Marist, she had a great year freshman of the year, but it was COVID year, so they didn't play non-conference.
Mhm.
But so it's kind of close together. And so she's done both those things this year. And you add that to everything that she's done. Her legacy, basketball wise, is insurmountable. The things that she's done here, and the history she's created. And, she's just a great person too. She's a great human being. She's such a joy to be around. She's always smiling. She never really has a bad day. I can't even think of like one day where Caitlin Weimer has come in and been down or have been not in a good mood or has just been playing super bad. She never lets the outside world affect her basketball world. And that's the kind of leader she is. Like, she's a leader by example. She's not the loudest person in the gym, but she's shown to do that consistently the last 3 years that she's been here. And I have very rarely seen any kid that I've coached be able to do that and not let anything else outside affect what's going on currently and just still continue to play hard and play consistently night in and night out.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the first word I'd use to describe her is consistency. And like it's the kind of thing where like for me growing up, like I'm 26 now, and I think it started to hit for me like how hard it is to actually be consistent in pretty much any walk of life, but especially when you're talking about like always having to be physically and mentally on, like that's really difficult. And so finding somebody who is, where she's at in her life and being able to do that night in, night out is like it's really impressive. Especially like when you talk about that consistency she brings, like what kind of stands out about how she does it, or the way she's evolved to get to this point while in Boston.
Honestly, she does it with ease, to be honest, Mark.
Yeah.
Like, I joke with her a little bit, like, do you even sweat? Like, it's just like seems so effortless for her. Obviously, she's working very hard, but she makes it look so effortless. She's like a gazelle up and down the floor. Somebody once told me like she's a very elegant player. That's how they put it to her. It's just in a fact of like she again makes it look effortless, and her ceiling is so incredibly high. I don't even know that she's hit her ceiling yet. And that's how good she is and her potential and where she can be. And, from her first year here, she was a sophomore when she transferred in. We really had to have conversations about the consistency piece because she wasn't there yet. And getting her to play at a higher level, like in practice, making that a habit. And she really did that. She consistently practices the same exact way, and that has really transferred for her into games. I don't know many games where she this year, especially, that she hasn't had a double double. One game she was sick and barely played, so that was definitely one of them. But she's had a double double pretty much every game, and that is not an easy feat. I played at Notre Dame. I was a post as
Hmm.
well. That is not an easy feat to do that night in and night out with a double or triple team on you, with getting fouled, you know, countless number of times. She attracts so much attention, and to continue to do that against that type of matchup every single night is so impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I think, I correct me if you feel otherwise, but I think one of the things that's been interesting to me in like getting a better understanding of um just the game as a whole and looking at it developmentally, like I think it's so hard to be a dominant post because it's one thing to be tall and be able to be an outlet or be somebody who can do things, but to do it all the time and always command attention and be able to take advantage of it is a lot harder than I think it gets credit for. So like being able to see somebody who does do that, it definitely brings an appreciation out.
Oh yeah, and as a post too, and I'm biased, right? I was a post, so I'll
Yeah.
say being a post is harder than being a guard, right? And the point guard has its own, difficulties, right? But a post, you have to do everything. You got to run the floor, you got to rebound, you got to score, you got to be a good passer, you got to defend, all those things. You got to be vocal in coverages. So it's very hard to take any plays off. And maybe as a winger, I can sit there a little bit and just sit in the corner and wait for my three. But you're always working as a post, and she does it in, like I said, such a dynamic way and such a dominant way.
Yeah. And that ties into what I want to go into next as well. So, in going back through it and trying to find as much as I could on just you and the Boston program as a whole, I found an entire plethora of like post fundamental videos you did when you were at Yale. And I wanted to dive into like just talking about teaching post fundamentals because I know like just from your intro presser at BU was like, all right, we're going to be good on the glass and we're going to learn the fundamentals. And I think again, in watching you guys, the way that you play in and out of the post, I think you can see some teams where like they want to play a more low post oriented offense and it can feel like it sometimes like the ball can stick a little bit much or there can just be issues in like finding a balance and it doesn't I mean maybe you feel otherwise but for me it is very much in watching felt like you guys have a great balance down with that and again like when you watch it maybe it doesn't seem like a difficult thing but I think just from having seen teams struggle with that before it stands out. So what is to you when you're teaching like these are the fundamentals we need to get to, and then this is how we can play in and out of the post. I know it's a bigger question and probably multiple questions at the same time, but like, how do you kind of start from the ground up with that?
It's a big emphasis for us. We want to play through our post players. It's talked about daily. It's repped daily. We do post feed passing almost every day. So fundamentally, it's working on being great passers, getting our angles, the guards working on getting better angles into the post, reading the weak side help. Is it open? Is it not open? Do I have to skip the ball first, then get it inside? That's been a big thing for us, especially for a player like Kate, who garners a lot of attention. We don't want to force the ball in necessarily with 2, 3 people on her. Can we skip it around the floor a little bit, then get it into her? So, there's been an emphasis on the pass into the post. And then with, a player like Kate, and then even a Marin last year, Marin Durant, she became a phenomenal passer out of the post. It's our ability to pass out of the post as well. And Caitlin didn't have that as much the last 2 years. It was more like I'm going to score this if it goes in. It's not really coming back out. And now she's had to do this and she's had to develop her ability to pass out of the post, but she's become a much better passer this past year. She's able to see outside the window to kick opposite. She's able to see the dive from the opposite post. So we are continually working on every day, first and foremost, getting up the floor out of transition into the post. That's always our first look. A lot of our offense, our first look is always to get in. So we always want to stress, playing through our post players, and then playing inside out is the other piece. So it's not a black hole when we pass it in there. We're also able to play out of it. And I really attribute us shooting a high percentage from three, especially the last 2 years, due to that, because Caitlin attracts 2 to 3 people and we get open threes that are not contested. And once the shot is contested, obviously the percentage falls dramatically. But I attribute a lot to Caitlin being able to pass out and our post being able to pass out to our guards to hit open threes as well. So, it's an emphasis, obviously a repetition thing in practice, but it's an emphasis. Like we need to be, when we catch, looking at the rim at our post. That's the first look, and then play out of it from there.
Hmm. No, that's a lot of great insight. And that was one of the things I want to hit on too. The way that you guys hit post entry is like one of my favorite things to watch. I feel like so often, like you can see teams, and there are some teams who can get away with it if you have a post who's like, 6'5", 6'6", like, okay, you can stare them down and get them the ball still. But for the most part, like if the first entry isn't there, you're moving the ball side and then getting in. And like I think again, watching that kind of stuff to me, especially like, you know, it's not every team cannot post entry the ball like that. And especially when you have a player who's that good, like it takes the passers to make it happen as well. So it's been really fun to watch that play out as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of it too is we have some selfless guards, like Soph Benaventine is super selfless. She doesn't take many shots, but she's leading our team in assists and she's able to, get the ball inside. I would say like her and Alex are leading our team in assists. And so they run an unselfish type of basketball. And that's been our culture that I've tried to establish here from the first day is sharing the ball, celebrating each other. The success of the team is everyone's success, that sort of thing. And I think the girls have really bought into that. And it's fun basketball to watch, being able to just share it.
Yeah. And it seems like they have a great time playing it as well. Um, and, transitioning from that too, obviously, again, like we mentioned with it being year three now, what do you think has been the biggest growth for you as a coach? Like if you kind of looked back on where you were at before taking the job. I know we mentioned obviously family life being a big adjustment and jump, but in terms of just like on court, like what do you think has been maybe the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself or how you are as a coach?
Oh, geez, there's so many things that you
Yeah.
learn, right? I would say the biggest thing is just like learning to adjust, what that looks like, what that feels like, especially in game and pressure situations, and feeling confident about it too. Like I think the first year you're not really confident because you don't really know what you want or what it looks like because you've never been in the seat. But especially in year three now, I feel much more confident with my adjustments with the things I want to call. And that's an ever evolving situation where you're always trying to continue to grow in that area. And we've adjusted like our special situations. We've adjusted many different things where I feel like, can we be better? After the Holy Cross Championship game, I took that so hard, and I
Mhm.
really went back and I was like, how can I be better? With adjustments, with especially end of game, with those sorts of things. But I feel like you just get a comfortability, you get a confidence, and it continues to grow each year with successes but also with failures, right? And those are hard lessons to learn for everybody, especially when you're running the program and you feel like things are your fault,
Mhm.
and those are hard, like I said, hard lessons to learn but huge growth opportunities. So I look back at the championship game as obviously it was very hard to get over, but obviously a huge growth opportunity for myself, for my staff, for my team in ways we want to move forward and get better as a program to continue to compete at that level.
Yeah. That's something I wanted to ask too. Like, how do you kind of, how do you get better? Oh, obviously, I don't think anybody necessarily gets better at sitting with losses, but like, I think especially when I was an athlete, I was somebody who I was really bad at ruminating on losses. So like, how do you work on moving past it, especially in like you mentioned at the off rip, like this is a 3 game week. Like you don't really have time to necessarily sit in a loss. So how do you kind of adjust on the fly with that and maintain focus on what's next?
I think it's easier this early in the season because there's so many more games to
Yeah.
play. So your focus is we just need to keep getting better. March is where we want to be at our peak. We want to be playing our best basketball. It's not going to happen right this second. So just trying to keep yourself grounded and understanding that and keeping your patience a little bit and understanding there's so much more time to continue to improve. Like we're okay, right? I even said I was upset after the Army game, but it's like, well, these are the areas we need to adjust and fix. Not super hard to fix them. Like they're fixable situations. So let's get in there and do it. And, I said that to the team today. Like, this is a tough week, but it's a tough week for Holy Cross too. They got to travel to Lehigh and then come back and play. So it's probably tougher for them right now. So it's like not a time to hang your head. It's a time to kind of hunker down and continue to grind and get better. That's what this is right now. So again, we can be at our peak in March when we're going into playoffs and things like that. So trying just to keep grounded in that sense and understanding kind of where we at, how young we are, and where we've come, to get to this point is a piece of it. So it's definitely easier to learn from losses now. Now, once you get to, like it's your last game of the season, that's obviously a lot harder pill to swallow and having to sit with that for a year until you
Yeah.
get to tip it up again in November. But it's got to be a fuel and a motivation again to evolve, to change, to get better as a coach, and get to plan again. You're doing lesson plans, right? As you get into practice season and summer session and postseason, all those things. Where do we want to get better and continue to grow? And that, like I said, that includes myself. So, again, it took at least a few weeks to get over that one.
Yeah,
And
I can
then
imagine.
it was like back to the drawing board. Once we started workouts again, it was like, feels like a fresh start almost.
Hmm. No, for sure. Um, going off that as well, in terms of just looking at everything as a whole, like obviously we talked about the family piece. It's something that I feel like I'm trying to learn. So like I'm not even married yet or anything. So it's not like, fully at the tip of the mind, but like how do you balance family life with work? Because I think, obviously it's different for everybody. I know if I remember correctly, your husband coaches as well. Um, so, what is that balance like in trying to find that?
It's definitely not easy, especially two under two.
Yeah.
It's been harder than I had imagined. My mom lives like 5 minutes from us, so she really helps with the kids. Every day she's helping out with them, and the overnights if me and my husband are both away. My husband's a men's coach at UMass Lowell, so thankfully our schedules don't conflict a ton during the season. But when they do, she's there. And again, thank God for her because I don't know that we'd be able to both do this at the same time together
Yeah.
without her. So I think family, helping from family is a huge thing that I've learned throughout this process. Like we always need to be near family and have family near us. Because it does take a village. There's
Yeah.
no that's it sounds like a cliche phrase, but it takes a village. It truly does. And so definitely, we have help there. And then just trying to, manage my schedule with, trying to recruit while we're already on the road, little things like that. So I don't have to miss more time with them. And like tonight I'm going to go recruit. I'm going to bring my daughter with me to the game, to a high school game. So trying to find little moments of and pockets of time like that too. I typically, we have afternoon practices, so I'll go home, earlier than 5 and get home to spend a couple hours with them. They go to bed around 7, and then I'm up late watching film and doing practice stuff after they go to bed. So it's just trying to juggle and find those pockets of times that you can spend with them, and then, you know, sacrificing some extra sleep,
Yeah.
those types of pieces. But it's been such a joy. I love, having them around the team and them coming to games and things like that. And they really love to be around basketball already, even so young.
That's awesome. No, I like that. Yeah, no, I feel like exactly what you're saying too. The biggest thing I've learned so far is yeah, sleep is the biggest thing I have to sacrifice right now. So it makes a difference for sure. And
Absolutely.
you hit on the recruiting piece too. Uh, Especially like obviously I think people can like automatically have the idea right away of like how different it is to recruit the Ivy League compared to everywhere else. But like what is that jump like going from recruiting Ivy League to, oh hey, like I can recruit everybody now? Like obviously it's I feel like it's got to be pretty different, but I was wondering your perspective on that, considering how long you coached Ivy for a while and then obviously we're at Wake before coming here.
Yeah, and I love my time in the Ivies too. And luckily for me, I've really kept the same niche of
Mhm.
high academics. Obviously, I played at Notre Dame. I started at Colgate in this conference, was at Yale, Wake, and now here. So I've always loved staying in the high academic realm of recruiting really high level student athletes. Both of those things combined, well rounded, individuals, and just being at prestigious universities where you can really recruit well. So even Yale, we recruited all over the country. aside from the foreign piece that I've added when I went to Wake and now here, that was
Mhm.
the one caveat that was really difficult was the foreign piece at an Ivy to get them in with the TOEFL score and those sorts of things. But other than that, the landscape hasn't really changed of, teams I've recruited from or places. Like I said, we recruited nationally at Yale, and we do the same thing here at BU. Where we have a kid from Cal, a kid from Colorado, Florida, Canada, Iceland. I mean, New Jersey. That's our recruiting class coming in next year, just for BU. So kids will travel, especially young women, to have a great education and to compete for championships. So that's been the kind of cool thing where I've gotten to keep the ties recruiting, coaching wise, program wise, area of the country, and then just add, the international piece, which obviously we have a few of them now, which has been really fun to coach and, see and expose the team to different cultures.
Mhm. Has I guess maybe perspectives might be the wrong way to put it, but like, has anything changed for you, like in terms of how you view or see recruiting since becoming a head coach? Like, I'm always curious about that too, because I know you were a recruiting coordinator quite a bit too. So like, how does that kind of change up for you mentally, or does it?
I think and I was an RC, every stop I've been at before.
Hmm.
And you have such a huge pool of recruits and you're trying to get in really high level talent and you're still trying to get obviously quality kids, but I think the need and the want for um not just the talent piece but also, is this person going to be good in my locker room? Is this
Yeah.
person going to support me as a head coach? Is this person coachable? you know the history of this person. Have we done our due diligence with the people around them and, family, coaches, counselors, everything, and really dug deep? So I think that shifts a little bit where, you know, there's more questions asked, I should say, if someone brings a recruit to me and it's, can go one way though. There's a lot of questions asked if I'm not as familiar with the kid yet, right?
Hmm.
So I think that becomes really important because like this is your program and you're running this and you are responsible for every single piece of it. So even to bring in one person that is not on the same page, is not bought in, affects everybody. So I think that piece changes a little bit. Whereas as an assistant or an RC, like you're trying to bring in the best talent, and win and those sorts of things where there's so many other pieces that you're trying to think about as a head coach with the recruiting.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense. I hadn't thought of it like that before. Um, flipping that too, because one of the things that anything I've seen from you, talk a lot about servant leadership. And also I'm like very aware of what you've done with Play Bold. So I want to talk about that and how what really instilled servant leadership in you, what really instilled wanting to build something in basketball, but outside of your own program. Like, what really started that for you?
Yeah, I think it's just so important to give back. And our kids have really bought into the community service and the servant leadership piece where they committed, we talk about our pillars of our program, and then they've committed to doing at least once a month of community service. And this could be outside of the team as well. So on their own. It's during the summer months, it's while they're home, everything. And so they've really committed to this. And that's been really, really awesome to see, from my seat, is just them wanting to give back and they get excited about it. And it's in their hearts to want to serve. So for me, I grew up, my father has passed away now, but he was in the ministry as well. So I
Hmm.
grew up in the church and had really developed a heart for the poor. I played overseas for 5 years and I used to volunteer with a church in Prague. We used to go out into the streets every Saturday and feed the less fortunate. We'd go out there and have conversation and, all those things. So it started there. I worked with Athletes in Action a little bit. I worked on campuses with FCA, those sorts of things. And then I wanted to kind of be present in a bigger way in underprivileged countries. I just felt called to go. So I would do these mission trips on my own. I did Haiti, I did Ukraine, Moldova, Guatemala. I did some different ones. And then I would come back. I was an assistant by now. and I would come back from these trips, and a lot of my players would say, "Oh, we want to go. We just don't know how to go or who to go with, or
Hmm.
we don't have a platform." So I wanted to create what's called Play Bold, is the nonprofit that I run now, but I wanted to create a platform for student athletes to be present in a big way in other underprivileged countries. So it started off about 6 years ago, I would say. We used to just go do clinics, bring, goods with us, sneakers, clothes, that sort of thing. And that was our big give back. We would do some community events, life skills, education sessions, things like that. It would be like a week trip. And then it kind of evolved to our last in-person trip was in Eswatini, which is in the south of Africa,
Hmm.
and we actually built a basketball court. So it kind of has grown into, we want to leave something lasting behind that will affect for years and years and years to come that community. So we built one in Eswatini at a home for girls who have all been sexually abused or trafficked in a very sheltered area. We built that for them, and the feedback just from that first court was so phenomenal. You think you're just planting a court, they're going to get exercise, get off the street, different types of things. But what the young woman who ran that facility said to me was there were girls there who were very separated, who, because of what they've been through, were isolating themselves. The court brought them together. They were on there from sun up till sundown, talking, laughing, opening up, and it just like it brought her so much joy. And now they even use the court to raise funds. So they'll have like 5-on-5 tournaments virtually and things like that, and they raise funds. So the court is just something I wanted and my organization wanted to leave behind to make a lasting impact. So now every year we do at least one. We're just finishing one in Africa as well. And we're going to continue to build. And Africa has been a big calling of mine, but we want to get back to the in-person, with our athletes. It's been probably like since the COVID year, we haven't gone, we've done virtual builds, but the purpose is also to bring men and women's basketball players and coaches on the trips to do clinics and engage with that community as well.
Yeah, a ton of stuff off that. First off, COVID, geez, wow, COVID really threw everything off. I feel like I'm
Right.
still like easing back into things from it. And it's been 2.5 years, but um, yeah, it's so funny because I was telling you before we hopped on that a friend of mine played for you at Yale, and because I was talking to her the other day, and she mentioned she was like, yeah, I went on a trip with her to Kenya, and it was like one of the greatest experiences of my life, and um. I think it's so interesting because we can get so caught up in like obviously like winning, and that's what we do it for. That's what, being in basketball is about, but also I don't know, I think in some ways to focus most on basketball or just in anything, like you got to be able to focus on other things and remind yourself like, hey, there's more going on than just this, and you get an appreciation outside of that. And no, that's absolutely huge, and I love that.
Yeah, and that's always helped me. I was always very hard on myself as a player, and it was like if basketball wasn't going well, nothing was going well, and
Yeah.
I would just be upset about everything, and it would kind of leak into other areas of my life. And then when I got older, I started doing even things like this. One, it's so humbling, and two, it's something that makes you realize that basketball is a very minute piece of life, and like uh in the grand scheme of things, there's so many bigger things in life, and now, as a coach and later on in my career as a professional player, I had a bad game and it wouldn't affect me as much, even now, like we have a loss and I'm like, I'm also a mom and I also run a nonprofit, and like thinking about there's so much bigger things, these kids have exams going on. These kids have so many other things going on besides basketball in their lives. And that's what makes me love like a place like BU, because they are so well rounded. They're not just basketball players, but there's so many other pieces to them. And that's healthy. Like you need to have other pieces and you need to find an identity outside of basketball. But it just reminds you like there is a much bigger picture to life than just basketball, and what that looks like. And, like I said, aside from that, it's also just very humbling. It's a humbling experience to show and feel how blessed we are.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, Melissa, I know I've kept you for a minute. To close out, to shift back to basketball for a second, what things are you really hoping to round out with the rest of the season? Obviously, it's kind of wild to say we're already halfway through. It feels like we should be further in, but also it feels like it shouldn't have been past Thanksgiving yet. But what things are you really hoping to see the group do as the rest of the year goes on?
Yeah, I want to continue to get better offensively. We, in the last three games, have kept our turnovers down significantly from where we started. And I attributed that. I knew we would go through some growing pains, through the non-conference and starting conference. So if we can keep our turnovers down, give ourselves more possessions with the way we're shooting the ball at a high percentage. Like even looking at Army, we shot 44% from the field, but we had 16 less possessions because of O board. So
Mhm.
offensively can give ourselves more possessions, take care of the basketball, and play with the pace we want to play. I feel really good about the pieces we have offensively to be able to compete for a championship. So would love to see continued growth there and elevation. And then defensively, just the lock in. I think we have good moments defensively, but have yet to put 40 minutes together. So I'd love to keep just getting better in the defensive side. But, like I said, if we can continue to get better now until March and continue to progress and trend upwards, I feel good about that. Whether it's learning from a win or a loss, obviously we want to put ourselves in the best position and get the best seed we can going into playoffs. But I just want to get better. I want to feel like we're getting better and not taking steps back. So that's my hope, for the rest of this conference play and being able to find ways to win on the road and things like that and coming together and just continue to gel. Again, we're so new and so young. I can only ask that we continue to get better and gel together, as we continue the rest of these games here.
Well, I'm very excited to watch and keep up with it. For everyone else who wants to watch and needs to watch, ESPN Plus is going to have both those games coming up, Lafayette and Holy Cross. So I recommend tapping in. Melissa, again, I really appreciate your time. It was dope to get to know you a little bit. I'm excited to watch the rest of the season. Is there anything else you want to plug or shout out before we out of here?
I don't think so. I'm just so grateful, Mark, for you covering this
Oh, of
and
course.
covering the team. I love each and every one of them. So I always, I'm so appreciative of people who show interest and wanting to cover it. So I really appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. Thanks for playing good basketball. It's good to watch. To everyone
All right.
listening, thank you for listening. Most importantly, have a great rest of your day.